Well, 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 ladies and gentlemen, here we are again for episode 7 of True Detective Season 1. This is, of course, your host, Madman, and we are back. Here we have the epic credits sequence once again. Opening credits. Not much to say here. This episode is pretty heavy. Some heavy shit. It's kind of... it sets up the final episode of the series, so there's some exposition dump type shit that goes on here, but it's done very well, like most things in this series are. So this is going to be a whole bunch of information. It's going to be a bit of information dumping, but that's okay. We're ready to lie back and let the information dump all over us. That warm, steamy information. Yes. So, when we last left our heroes, they had just reconnected after 10 years or more apart. And this opening scene we're about to see here as the credits run to a close takes place in a bar. And conveniently, they're the only two people there, so they can talk as loudly about their personal shit as possible. You know. Bit contrived, but, you know, it works. Never noticed this in the opening credits. There's a scene just a few seconds ago where there's 3 worshippers, and they're superimposed into like a water tower. It's like the faithful drones, the NPCs, the vampire thralls. They're the water that the preachers and the liars and the storytellers draw from. Very creepy little symbolic nod there. And as we come in here to this bar, we have this jukebox, and it's very quick, but the card that's being selected, the little CD here, there's a bunch of Texas songs on it, of course, because they're in Texas. It's a nice little, continuity thing. They didn't have to do that. Again, there's tons of Kubrick-esque details in this that are completely, like 99% of people aren't going to see them, not because they're stupid, but because they're not autistic like me and haven't watched this 10 times. But the fact that the director bothered to, specifically say, I want that card to be shown for half a second or for 3 frames, I mean, that's just, I don't know. It's just someone who enjoys making visual art. They enjoy making TV or movies, If you don't enjoy your job, you're not going to give a shit about little details like that. So, these guys have both been interviewed by the same cops. They've both been grilled. They know what's going on, but for the purposes of the viewers, Marty is sort of laying the cards on the table. He's like, we've both been fucking grilled by these 2 guys. It's like we're in THX 1137 or 38, whatever it is. And Marty's like, I've been drinking green tea for 10 years. You've been smoking Camels and drinking cheap beer and not eating enough. This is the result. Look at the contrast between us. He's like, yeah, I've been drunk for 10 years, man. This whole thing fell apart. Our relationship fell apart. I quit my job. I went to Alaska, But he's like, I couldn't stay away. I came back to Louisiana in 2010 because there was another murder, because we didn't catch the guy who was actually doing this. And he says something very important. He's like, a man remembers his debts. What he's doing here is he's setting up a manipulation of Marty. He's not sure if Marty's going to agree to help him, but he needs him to. So he starts off by prepping the grounds, fertilizing the soil, linguistically, by talking about debts. And he's going to use another line on Marty. He's going to cast another spell in a minute here. Because he knows Marty doesn't want to help him. He knows Marty's probably moved on. He's done with all this shit. And Marty rightly points out, what, did you just alienate everybody else? And Rust's like, yeah, of course, man. It's not like I was an alienating type person, And Marty's ready to leave. He's like, I'm so done with this shit, man. You're driving me to drink. And he goes, I'm not trying to do that, man. I'm not trying to infect you with the alcoholism mind virus. And Marty points out, he's like, they're pinning you for this, man. I'm fine. I'm not going to get fucking pinned. It's the weird, creepy, skeletal-looking dude who haunts the murder scenes that's going to get pinned for this. Again, there's a lot of subtext going on here. It's hard to talk about. Rust is basically like, listen, man, it's not about innocence and guilt and justice. It's about convenience. It's about serving powerful people, family trees, elites, etc., etc. He's like, that's what's behind things. You're not that stupid. He's like, I've got to show you some deep shit. And here's where Marty's like, I'm done with this, man. I came here sort of as a favor and maybe out of curiosity, just to see how fucked up you actually are. Because these guys fucked with both of us. And he's like, I'm out of here. And then Marty springs his little linguistic spell, his little trap, where he talks about debt for a second time. And he says, you have a debt. You're an honorable guy. And you're touchy. You're kind of a bro, kind of a chud, kind of a chomo. If I mention that you have a debt, I'm going to trigger you a little bit. And he says, you killed Ledoux like he did a second ago, and he brings it up again here, subtly. He's like, this is partly on you, man. If you hadn't killed that guy, maybe these other murders that happened recently wouldn't be happening, because you were an idiot. If you hadn't killed that guy, we could have extracted information from him. We could have sobered him up medically and beaten the info out of him, but you didn't let him live. You were too angry and impulsive and stupid. And that's the debt. And the thing about this is Rust is manipulating him a little bit, but he's not wrong. He's telling the truth. That's why it's not an evil thing that he's doing to him. He's saying there really is some shit that has happened in the intervening years that's both of our faults. He's like, I'm willing to admit I fucked up, but you did too. And again, Marty's got his gun. Oh man, as viewers, is Marty going to kill Rust? What's going on? So tense. I don't like that plot, man. I mean, it's just to show that Marty's not an idiot, I guess, but it comes across like the show writers are trying to maybe imply that Marty's going to betray Rust and kill him. That's insanely stupid. If you've paid half a fucking brain's worth of attention to this series, he wouldn't do that, you know. Even after Rust fucked his wife, that's not reason enough to kill a guy. You know, Marty's a bit of a psycho, but he wouldn't murder a man for that. And Rust's like, yeah, of course you have a gun. I knew you would. I'm not an idiot either. He's got this creepy-ass schizo, you know, corkboard, you know, conspiracy wall in here, right? And Marty's like, man, poor Rust. This is how he's been spending his days until he sees what Rust actually has. He's right to be suspicious. This guy seems fucking cooked. He seems insane. And he's a little cooked. But he's not gone. He's not dead. He's here. And he's working. He's given his whole life to this case. So he's talking about these creepy schools. And he's like, look. And Marty's kind of making fun of him because he still doesn't get it. He hasn't seen enough. And Rust is like, listen, I've been doing things logically and sanely. I've been looking at this shit carefully. This map he's got reminds me of a very creepy map you can find in real life. Look up U.S. cave systems. And then look up disappearances of people. There's two maps, and then there's one that overlays them, but that one's harder to find. That's some real life shit that'll chill your fucking blood. Because they line up perfectly. Disappearances of people in the U.S. specifically, and underground natural geological cave systems in the States. It's like two shapes, and they just match when you lay the maps on top of one another. Very creepy shit. It's not like we've been doing that since the caveman days. It's nothing new. It's just to see it in the modern age and realize what's probably going on literally underneath your feet is very disturbing shit. Now, Rust is like, well, I went to this very progressive Reddit bar. We'll call it a progressive Reddit bar. Probably some cool people in here, you know, some content creators, maybe some artists. It's not a big deal. Probably a lot of degenerate freaks too, you know, it's a mixture of the two. Rust is talking to this guy. He's like, you went to this creepy school, right? What the fuck happened? You know? And he's like, what's the deal with this weird, creepy reverend guy? Man, this guy's got the Chloranthy ring from Dark Souls on his fucking right hand. That's some riz, man. I'd have a dance with this guy. Seems cool. He, she, it, whatever. And he's like, we'd go to sleep, but it's almost like we were drugged with some kind of paralytic or some kind of narcotic or whatever. Maybe they just give us NyQuil like that fucking scene from The Simpsons. I love that shit. Homer as a kid is like talking his mouth off, and the grandpa's like, how about a little NyQuil? He just drugs him to make him sleep. But he doesn't do what is being implied is done in this scene. And this guy's like, well, I had this weird fever dream where I kind of woke up during the creepy occult satanic ritual, and there were all these men wearing creepy masks to hide their faces, so that if I did see them, I wouldn't know who had raped me. And he's like, I knew this other chick. And he's like, maybe that was her. It's implying that, yes, that was her. You didn't need to give him the comical fucking... Literally, it's a Sharpie that they've used to draw a mustache on this person. That's degrading, man. Don't do that. Maybe he's trans, maybe he's whatever. Don't put a creepy mustache on him for the viewers. That's a bit much, man. You know, I'm not white knighting for trannies, but for fuck's sake. It's corny. It's not even that it's insulting to the group or the character. It's just cheesy looking, man. It looks fake. It looks bad. Don't do that shit. There's a lot of parts in this series, again, I've said it. It strays into corny territory, like any mass market TV series does. What makes this one great is it avoids it for the most part. And again, Marty's still like, you're just insane, I'm in denial, you haven't found anything. You know, he hasn't seen the guy in 10 years. Maybe he did go nuts. Perfectly valid assumption to make. But Rust is like, look, I've looked at every piece of evidence, even the ones that seem stupid or irrelevant, because sometimes that's where you have to look to find the truth. Sometimes the truth is in a weird, shitty place, and you gotta dig around to find it. But when you do, lo and behold, your efforts are eventually rewarded. And Rust is like, this guy who matches the description of the guy with the scars on his face, he's potentially our guy. He might be the killer. And so he's talking about these creepy, occult, pagan, satanic practices. Not saying that whole religion is evil, but there sure as fuck are some people who seem to use its symbology and imagery for evil acts, to cloak them or disguise them or to justify them. That's nothing new. People use Christian imagery for that, for fuck's sake. People use Scientology and Buddhism for that kind of crap. The fucking Dalai Lama made out with a kid on TV. That's some crazy shit. That's insane. Allegedly. I don't know. I haven't seen the footage. For some reason, I wasn't compelled to look that up. Man, I don't know. Not really interested in seeing that. So he's talking about the famous New Orleans flood in '04. And he's like, I found these creepy triangle sculptures in the flooded houses where people disappeared. He's like, I think our serial killer dude crept his way down there and had a bit of a fun time. He had a bit of a Mardi Gras of his own. And the reason Rust is so hot to get Marty on board is because he knows how desperate the police are. They need to find somebody to blame. And he's like, these people are all related. They're all doing heinous shit. And they've all got the same last name. I mean, how obvious does it have to be before you're fucking red-pilled, man? Rust is having to fucking give this guy a red pill suppository. Marty won't swallow it orally, so Rust's like, Marty, if I have to do this, I got some rubber gloves and lube and calipers, and we're gonna get that pill inside you one way or the other. And Marty, again, he has a right to be suspicious. This guy looks like a fucking nut job. Just shave the mustache and you'd look 10% more credible, man. And he goes, maybe you're just making up a story, like a conspiracy theory. Meanwhile, all Rust has done is show him evidence. Marty's just in denial. The irony is Marty has made up a counter story that none of this is real. And saying something isn't real when the evidence is screaming at you is just as fantastical as making up a story based on nonsense, based on a lack of evidence. Both of those things are self-deceptions. And they are protective. They're subconscious. When you don't want to accept some heinous shit, you make up a story to cover it up. Because the truth is brutal. Because a part of you has a sense that if you actually confront the truth, you might go nuts. You might lose your mind. That's dangerous. Sometimes you have to defend against that shit. Sometimes you have to come up with a story. Like, for example, we don't know who we are, what we are, why we're here, or how the universe came to be. We have to find explanations for those things, or else we go nuts. Whether you're an idiot or a savant, you gotta explain it somehow, right? That's what this series is talking about. That's why it's so rare, because to talk about these things with any sense of nuance and any level of subtlety, without seeming corny or pseudo or insane or stupid, is extremely difficult. And this series fails in a lot of ways to do it, but my God, it tries really fucking hard, and it does the best job I've seen out of a lot of content I've seen in my life so far. So, let's rubber band back to the movie. Rust has gone to see his wife, and it's implied that this is after he's seen whatever Rust is showing him in the storage locker. We're jumping forward in time like a couple days or whatever. And it's sort of Marty coming back and saying, I need to see you one more time because there's something I have to do that might kill me. And I want to see you one more time. And I want you to know that I'm sorry and that I love you and that everything you did for me was as good as you could make it. You did the best you could, and so did I. You know, he just wants to see her one more time to be like, hey, you're a good person. She's got a very interesting sort of Star of David pattern on her blouse there. A brown-haired woman with a Star of David. That's interesting. He's like, I'm grateful for Mossad for pairing you up with me. You know, I'm a rogue Pleiadian weirdo, and you're like some kind of, I don't even know. But you tried to use tough love, Jewish, maternal, woman-based societal influence on me, and some of it did me some good, but turns out I was too much of a Nordic savage, and I kind of fucked it up. So Rust is handing him some gloves. He's like, I wasn't kidding about the red pill suppository, Marty. It's like, I thought that was just Madman's headcanon, Rust. What the fuck is this gay shit? No, it's to protect both of them from getting their fingerprints on shit. And so then Rust goes, all right, I gotta tell you something insane that I did do that does discredit me and make me seem like a fucking psycho. I fucking broke into this mansion. And Rust is like, you know, I knew how crazy it was at the time. I was just so desperate to get a fucking answer that I busted into some secret society zone with two other guys. How the fuck did he convince these guys to do this? He's like, I'll give you guys some Fant if you come B&E with me. They're like, yes, okay. Like Gollum, he's like, I've got the ring of fentanyl, I'll give it to you. So despite the fact that this guy broke in, the rich, creepy dude that he stole shit from never reported the robbery, because that's all he took. He shows him some pictures. And he's like, here's a VHS tape, man. If you... You know, to believe I'm sane, to make you believe I'm sane, I have to show you this. Because, you know, Rust is really saying, I wouldn't blame you for thinking I'm nuts. Up to this point. This is the proof. Hands him some booze. It's like, you gotta numb yourself to watch this shit, man. It ain't easy. This is a man with 2 daughters who's watching this. Rust, his daughter was killed in a random accident. Marty raised his daughters all the way up till they were adults. So for him to see this is totally different than Rust seeing this. Way worse. He's pounding the table. God damn, man. If you have a soul, that's how you should react to that type of shit. Start punching the nearest object. He's like, you watched the whole fucking thing? I had to see if they took off their masks. Christ. Now, maybe Marty understands why this dude's been drunk for 10 years. Trying to watch that shit scientifically, objectively, to try to solve the case. Can you imagine? Absorbing that into your brain even once. He's like, I wouldn't blame you for killing the guy. And he's like, no, I think he assumed he was going to be blackmailed. And probably just took some fentanyl and fell asleep or some shit. I don't know. And finally, Marty's like, okay, dude, I get why you're so cooked, because you had to deal with this shit. How can I help? And he's like, all right. I got names, I got families, I got connections. Here we go. Let's do this. It's funny, it's a French name, Ledoux. I was just thinking, there's a Lovecraft story about a vampire that lives in the basement of an old house underground. It's like an alien vampire thing. It's called The Shunned House. It's my favorite Lovecraft story, my second favorite after Call of Cthulhu. Shunned House is beautifully done. Mountains of Madness is great, but it drags on a lot. That's my third favorite. Join me for my Lovecraft story ranking video, soon to come. Like and subscribe. But for real, in that story, the vampire is French. The name of the family that owns the haunted house in the story, The Shunned House, is a French family. So it's interesting they picked Ledoux here. I don't think that was an intentional thing, but you know, the French and the English were, of course, the earliest colonizers of this continent. So, and his wife, with her nice Star of David blouse, is saying, "Are you saying goodbye to me? What are you going to do?" And he goes, "Thank you. Thank you for just being the best you could with me." Because he's older now. He knows he's a piece of shit. He knows he's hard to deal with. He knows what his flaws are, finally. And he knows what he wants. In his own way, he wants what Rust wants. One thing, a very simple thing. It's called justice. Not the kind that's convenient, not the kind that just balances the scales for the sake of balancing them, not the kind that finds a suspect just to find one, but real justice, the kind that digs up the truth at any cost and punishes those responsible at any cost. That's real justice. There's no loans, there's no debts. It's just you get what you fucking deserve. To indulge in a epic meme quote. And so finally, Rust is like, hey man, what have you been doing? And he goes, holy shit, dude, you've actually become more human from drinking booze for 10 years. And he just goes, well, I ran this security firm for a while, and, I tried Bumble, but it matched me with a bunch of weirdos that I had a very strong, true sense that I would not be compatible with, just based on their attempts to sell themselves to me. It's implied that he even looked up sort of older flames of his, like even the chick he cheated on his wife with in the first place, like back in the 90s. And he's like, you know what, man? Now I just watch westerns and eat TV dinners. And that's okay. Like, he's like, I had my family, I had a wife, my daughters are grown up, they're on their own. I can do what I want now. And, Rust's the same. He's like, hey, I tried to have a family, blew up in my face, spent years with a woman, had a daughter, she died. I feel that, man. I spent over a decade with somebody, straight up. And wanted to have kids. We had all these plans. I had money set aside for a ring. It ended, It is what it is. Gotta move on. And moving on doesn't mean, I'll try the same thing again, It also doesn't mean, I'll try the opposite. It just means, well, I'll move on. And, what will happen will happen, And both of these guys, they're old enough to know that. They're like, you know what? There's a lot of things in life you can't control. And if your personality is what it is, if it's solidified, if it's not going to change, you got to shape your life according to what you are. You can't keep changing yourself forever, or you'll never get anywhere. At some point, you got to fucking accept who you are and just roll with it. That's a tough thing to accept, man. And I think men and women both have to deal with this, It's not just dudes who have to deal with it. Women have to deal with it too. It's not easy. It's just a particular stage of life that you eventually find yourself in, and, if you have to be like Rust, you have to be like Rust. If you have to be like Marty, you have to be like Marty. If you have to be like Marty's wife, you have to be like Marty's wife. And I love what Marty says. He's like, life is so short, it's barely enough time to get good enough at one thing to do anything significant. And Russ says something here it's a common philosophical quote. I forget who said it, but he goes, be careful what you get good at. That kills me to hear that. There's things I've gotten good at over the years that I enjoy doing, but a part of me goes, man, all the time I spent getting good at this has sort of trapped me in it, I can't change tracks now, I've got to adapt to doing X, Y, and Z forever now, for the rest of my life. It's creepy, you feel trapped. That's why you gotta have hobbies and shit that allows you to break out of that kind of, that trap. So, Marty's palling around because he was personable, he was sociable, he was a normal fucking person. He has these friends he can talk to, who he's done favors for and gone golfing with and gone drinking with and blah, blah, blah. He's probably covered for them cheating on their own wives a bunch of times. And he's like, I brought you some scotch. And then he gives him this story. Again, this is great. Marty lying to this guy about writing detective fiction is brilliant. It shows that he's picked up Rust's skill to lie. And now he's using it as an older man. He's more experienced. He's like, I understand Rust's process. I've subconsciously picked up his skill of lying, and now I'm using it. It's beautiful. The show doesn't tell it to you blatantly. There's not some corny-ass scene where Marty's like, Rust, I saw you lying so many times in the booth, in the police station, and now I have figured out how to do it. Now I will go talk to a detective friend of mine. There's no crappy, cheesy, shitty, bottom-of-the-barrel writing which would exist now. If this was made in 2024, that would be in the dialogue. Marty would be like, spelling out what he's doing. But because this was made fucking, 11 years ago, or whatever, 2012, 2013, I think this was made, because of that, it doesn't do that. And because Nicc Pizzaria, whatever the guy's name is who made this, because he's not an idiot, and he was at the forefront of this first season, he was able to control the amount of crap that leaked into this, and he kept this shit tight. Like a bathysphere going into the fucking Mariana Trench. He prevented leaks of bullshit, So, this is the company like Rust has been keeping, this creepy guy who he now looks like. And what's weird is, this guy's a career assassin. Isn't that interesting? Given the fact that there's a conspiracy theory that Woody Harrelson's father, well, it's not a theory, it's true. Woody Harrelson's father was actually an assassin. In this series that Woody Harrelson and Matthew McConaughey are writing, there's a character who's an assassin, who's a father figure, who looks like Matthew McConaughey. And in real life, Woody Harrelson and Matthew McConaughey have a theory that they're half-brothers. So this is really their father. In that scene in the bar, the guy who looked like Rust, he had the same long hair and mustache. It's almost like Rust is emulating this guy's look, because he's meant to be a representation of their father in real life, this assassin. Maybe he was an assassin who hunted Hollywood elite pedos and shit. Who knows? Some interesting lore behind this. Very interesting shit. Another reason this series has jumped back into my consciousness is because I wasn't aware of those rumors and theories and insane conspiracies that are completely wrong and invalid, and you shouldn't believe them. You shouldn't even look them up. But anyway, pay attention to that. They've got this buddy. It's basically their dad, both of them. So they're interrogating another random guy, and he's like, "Yeah, I used to go to these creepy parties. I was in this group. I was just a random kid. My family was sort of adjacent to this other family." And he says there was this guy with Cthulhu tentacle-shaped scars on his chin. And when I was an 11-year-old boy, this motherfucker used to stare at me like a fucking creep. He's like, everybody got too drunk, They couldn't hunt. And he goes, I only saw him the one time. And he's like, I'd remember if I saw that guy again. He was a fucking freak. And man, Rust here. Again, he's sort of tripping in the car, He's like, nothing grows in the right direction. That is a direct quote, almost, from Lovecraft, where in The Color Out of Space and also in The Shunned House, he talks about vegetation, Lovecraft does. And what he says is, the vegetation is growing wrong. It looks alien and weird. It doesn't look ordered and clean and natural. It looks like it's been corrupted or infected with something. And I don't think it's Lovecraft dabbing on all of nature, all of Midgard, all of Earth. He's saying that shit can get mutated, corrupted, changed, infected. And Marty is calling up that type of language when he says stuff like that. He says the same thing in like episode 3 when they're in the car, episode 1, when he goes, I get a weird taste out here, aluminum and ash, like you can smell the psychosphere. It's almost like industrialization is a virus that's infecting the natural order of Earth. That's something that the movie Stalker brings up. That industrialization itself, it's not an alien or an angel or a demon, it's an idea, it's a behavior, it's a tool, or a set of tools that prompts its users to transform their environment in a way that will kill them. So there's all these themes sort of floating around, sort of orbiting this series. That's why I love it. It's great. It summons up all these associations. It's fantastic. You know, if you've read a few books in your life, you don't have to be a genius. You're going to get this, you know. So let's rubber band back to the movie from my random bullshit and talk about the scene. They're interviewing this epic woman. The white boy racist in me was like, make a joke about Aunt Jemima. And I was like, I'm not going to do that. Oh shit, I just did indirectly. Sorry, guys. But anyway, that's the point. She's an older black woman from the South, you know. That's what she is. And Rust is like, what were these parties like and what were these families like? And she goes, there was little boys running around with their little Bart Simpson penises flashing around. And it was all okay back then. Everybody just touched each other, but no one judged anyone. It's like heaven. Marty's like, Russ, can I kill this chick? Rust's like, not till we extract the information, Marty. She's a relic from another time. Leave her alone. She was with Mark Twain. They were vibing in the fucking Bohemian Grove. They were juggling children like fucking bowling balls. Jesus Christ. I'm coping with this by making shitty jokes. Basically, this woman is like, she has a line here from a second ago that's like, a man's house was his own. Creepy line. It's kind of like what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas, you know? In these elite families, you could get away with anything back in the day. Maybe she did some heinous shit. She's like 90, you know? She's very old. That's the implication. She's from another time, and she's trying to describe these people. She's like, that was the norm back then, you know? Even in the States in fucking 1905, you could fucking marry a 12-year-old, you know? She's a relic. Times are not the same. But she's alive. You can talk to her. My God, man. And when Rust shows her these images, it summons something up in her. And the daughter's like, what the fuck are you creeps doing here? Your mineral rights grift has fallen apart. And she says, I'm a Lovecraftian squid being. And you're showing me the symbols of my home in Rullier at the Mariana Trench. And she's like, you guys better fucking bribe me, man. Like, I'm not a hoe, but if you don't want me to fucking report you, you better give me some cash. Good for her, man. If that happened to me, I'd do the same shit. I'd be like, you fuckers just assaulted my dying grandmother. You want any kind of help, you gotta pay me. Information costs money. Information has value. Fuck you. Good for her, man. She's hot, too. God damn. Sexy character, I gotta say, you know. Sorry for letting my dick take over the recording for a minute, but god damn, man. I'd live with her and take care of her grandma if, you know, if I could get some brown sugar. That song, man. Holy fuck. Imagine playing that for like a progressive Reddit group of people with the lyrics on display. Just to watch how they would react to it. That's pure entertainment, man. Anyway, enough of that crap. So, Erath. Interesting. Erath is like Earth. Man, that's so similar to the word Earth. Fuck. Sorry, the linguistic schizo part of my brain is activated by that shit. So Marty's talking about this guy, and he's like, well, this is a cop we worked with. It's the guy that Rust confronted in an earlier episode and said, "Oh, you guys canvassed the bars pretty well." And he went, "Fuck you, man." And Marty's like, this guy's moved up to the point where he might know some shit, and he may have been involved in something that can help us solve this case. And fucking, Rust is like, "I'll fucking car battery this guy." And Marty's like, "How the fuck have you picked up my psychotic physical shit? Oh, wait, I picked up your propensity for lying. I guess we've exchanged abilities a little bit. It's like in Baldur's Gate when you trade armor or items between two characters. It's kind of like that." "Oh, golf, that most boring of sports." I'm terrible at golf, man. I've tried it a bunch of times. I just suck ass at it. No matter how many times somebody says to me, "Focus on the ball," I end up chipping the dirt. I should learn how to do curling. Curling is an interesting sport. I like watching it. Curling is boring, but if you pay attention, it's actually really interesting. It's like darts. It's more about accuracy and calculation than like physical beat the shit out of your opponent with your shoulders kind of thing. That's what hockey and football are all about. It's like, use your shoulders as battering rams. Hopefully you've developed some muscle. Slam into your opponent forever. That's the game. Whereas another type of game is more about calculating and aiming and precision. I like that type of shit. Archery too, man. Archery's badass. You gotta be physically fit to pull the bow, but it's about accuracy, calculation, timing, vision. That type of shit's interesting to me. Archery, curling, darts, that's cool. Golf is similar, but man, I'm terrible at it. I'd probably be terrible at all the other sports I just mentioned too, because I'm not a sporty type of person, but in terms of what I like to watch, sport-wise, I'm a curling, darts, archery type guy. Man, this guy's got a fucking Bentley. Those things are like $100,000 minimum, man. That's insane. He's like, "I got the adrenochrome money. My car actually runs on adrenochrome. I just take a child and squeeze them with my hands, and the fluids from the body pour right into the engine. Runs like a dream. 800 horses." I love it. He's like, "Don't go too fast, Sheriff. I'm gonna fucking kill you." And again, I love this scene because Marty phones Rust and he says, "I know this guy's lying," because he's observed Rust in the interrogation room long enough. He knows how to tell when someone's lying. Beautiful, subtle, not screamed at you with exposition. It's done through action and visuals. Excellent. Again, there's series that have done the same type of thing a lot more subtly and a lot better in the past. The point is that when this came out, and especially in retrospect, what it does in terms of character development is, to me, very impressive. It's still impressive. It'll be impressive in 20 years. In a sense, it's timeless. So here's a very interesting scene. Remember that Marty's wife here came into a bar when she wanted to cheat on her husband. And this is the only other time we've seen her come into a bar on her own. And it's to confront Rust, because what Marty said to her was so out of character. She was like, "You're not hypnotizing him into sacrificing himself, right?" Rust's dad, quote unquote, is fucking drunk in a corner where he's pretending to be so he can listen to them. That's a possibility. She's like, "I hear you've been back." He goes, "Well, Marty told me the girls are good, And she goes, "I need some reassurance from you, man." He goes, "I can't give it to you." And he goes, "I'm not going to lie to him, You can't help him. He's his own man. He's separated from you. His life is his own. And he's right. It's a cold thing to say. But remember, he left her in the diner 10 years back. When she insulted him, he just left. And he had to do it again. Poor guy, man. That doesn't feel good. It doesn't mean you're some kind of psychopath if you have to leave someone when you've tried to tell them something important and they won't accept it. If they won't accept it, you can't just bug them like a creep. Now, let's get back to this. This is important. Marty has just asked Rust has asked Marty, what made you quit? And Marty just gave him this bombshell. He's like, a meth head microwaved an infant, and I had to see it. And he's like, that's it, man. I'm done. If I keep doing this after seeing what I've seen, I will lose my mind or my soul or both. It's like if you read too many creepy texts, or you go to too many campaigns in a war, or even if you study physics too long, if you do anything too much, you can break yourself. And Marty knew. He was smart enough to go, that's it, man. I can't see this again. This isn't me. I'm not strong enough. I don't have the defenses to sustain myself in the wake of this shit. I can't deal with it. So he bowed out. So now we're panning over the swamps of the South. Yeah. I can't imagine a more uncomfortable climate. 90% humidity, mosquitoes and flies and all sorts of shit. Give me a fucking Arctic landscape any day, man. Cold is clean. Let's get that hashtag going. Hashtag cold is clean. It's harder for shit to survive when it's frozen. When the air is dry and the ground is ice. That's beauty, man. It's clean. Clean and clear and pure. Further south you go, it's like you're going further towards hell. Everything's hot, humid, sticky, buggy, fungally infected, moldy, grotesque. Get out of there, man. Come up to the north. It's harder up here. You gotta shovel snow, but my God, it's much better. Plus, we need people up here. Come to Titan, the moon of Jupiter. We're trying to terraform it. It's very cold here, but there's a desolate beauty to it. We need fiery souls to join us here, to cool off. Get some good work done. Don't worry, we have alcohol and all sorts of fun things up here too. But come join us. We need people. We need souls. I loved, the setting in Starfield. The base on Titan, or the settlement on Titan. There was something about that reminded me of Oblivion. It was very comfy, very atmospheric. Anyway, let's rubber band back from my crap to the show. So, they've sprung their trap on this creepy fat guy. And he's like, do you realize how many elites that I know? Blah, blah, blah. And they're like, we don't give a shit, man. And Marty's straight up like, I can't make him do anything, man. He's fucking crazy. And they're like, you can't threaten us with Angola, man. We know the whole system. You're fucked. Fucking Marty's like, my dad was a career assassin, you asshole. You think I can't just kill you with precision and impunity? And here's a very interesting scene. I'm going to say it. Not for any sort of trivial, superficial reason. I think these two characters are really interesting in this scene. They act totally differently because they're like Marty and Rust in this scene. They're being casual. They're not interrogating people. So they behave differently. and they're real people. They're raw. They're like honest. Like they're talking not to, be racist. They're talking like two casual black guys would talk to each other. You know? It's good. It's honest. It's cool. They have actual character. They seem like distinct human people. But the show only gives us like 2 scenes like this. If season 2 of this had featured these 2 guys, that would have been better than the season 2 we got. I would have loved that. These 2 characters are interesting. They have a dynamic that's a little bit like Marty and Rust, but it's not the same. I would have loved to see them trying to solve a crime with, I don't know, an Asian serial killer. Mix it up however the fuck you want. The point is that these characters are interesting. They're written well. The actors are good at performing and delivering the lines. They're cool. They have their own sort of way of navigating a story. It's different, but it's interesting. That's cool. I like that. I think a lot of other people would like it, no matter what color they are. But instead, we got season 2 of this, which I don't know if I'll ever comment on it. I haven't rewatched it in a long time, which probably means I should. But season 2 of this is very different. It's a lot more. It's frenetic. It's all over the place. It has a whole bunch more characters. It tries to do a whole bunch of other shit. It's a lot more political and economic than this, and it's kind of a mess. It's where the series started to fall off, which is really unfortunate, man. Again, if you enjoy season 1, I recommend season 2. I think you should watch it. It's good. It's better than most TV, but keep in mind it's not going to reach the level of quality that this does. And season 3, I would argue, in a lot of ways is better than season 2. But it's kind of huffing the farts of season 1. It kind of tries to go back to season 1 a bit too much. It replicates the shuffled chronology a lot, whereas season 2, I think, rightly gets away from that. But anyway, as our epic groundskeeper mows his way into the end credits and the boat coincidentally floats by, we are at the end of season 1, episode 7. So thank you guys for watching. Hope you enjoyed. Whoever you are, wherever you're from, whatever your goals or intent or interest in my videos is, or where it originates from, I genuinely wish you as a person all the best. And as always, peace out.